1917. But there are very few whose rolling stock still carries the same name it had 100 years ago. As an example, we can go just a mile and a half down West Main Street, find another railroad that's operated under several names just in the lifetimes of the people that are gathered here this morning. As a historian, I try to stay focused on things that actually happened in the past. Sometimes, however, I like to contemplate the what-ifs in history, just as many people like to discuss the what-ifs in sports and politics. In the same way that Clarence, the guardian angel, showed Jimmy Stewart's character what his small town would have been like without him in It's a Wonderful Life. There are a lot of what-ifs that could have altered what we're doing here today, and I'd like to run through just some of them. What if you hadn't had Arcadians such as Charles Shepard and Heman Wilson, who had formed a corporation in 1852 to lay out much of what's the current rail line? What if there had been no nationwide panic the next year, 1853, that stopped those plans before the railroad could actually start operating? What if nobody had ever picked up where that had left off in 1880 and built a railroad along that route from Attica to Courier's? What if in 1881 that railroad had gone, according to its original plan, from Courier's to Chafee instead of coming down here to Arcade to cross Cattaraugus Creek and to the original depot, which was across the street. And the original platform was where Mama's Home Cooking is now. What if they hadn't changed or converted that rail line in 1895 from narrow gauge to standard gauge and just let it fade away like a lot of narrow gauge railroads did? What if they hadn't built a connection along the south side of Cattaraugus Creek down to the connection with the Pennsylvania in 1897? What if the Goodyears hadn't come along and acquired what was then the Buffalo, Attica, and Arcade Railroad in 1907 and made that part of their Buffalo and Susquehanna Railway, which included the part that goes now across West Main Street at what we think of as Drake's Crossing up to Park Street and on south to Wellsville. What if Frank Goodyear, who was the driving force behind the Buffalo and Susquehanna, hadn't died early and Buffalo and Susquehanna kind of fell apart? What if he had lived and they had kept with their original plan to extend the part from Arcade to Attica on up to Charlotte, up near Rochester? That could have been quite an operation. What if you hadn't had 356 local people between Arcade and Attica who decided to buy shares of stock and form a corporation in 1917 before those tracks got taken up as part of the Buffalo and Susquehanna collapse? What if you hadn't had stockholders over the last 100 years who sometimes would be satisfied with just riding the train to Arcade for an annual dinner instead of getting a cash dividend? What if you hadn't had a January thaw in 1957 that caused the railroad to cease operations north of Perry Road? You had Dick Cartwright. By the early 1960s, he worked here for almost half a century. He was what we think of as a senior citizen. What if he had decided to just retire instead of he and the directors of the railroad taking the initiative to find an old steam locomotive in Michigan and start steam service here in 1962? Not too long after that, the Borden Company came up with Cremora, and much of that was made right here in Arcade, and kept the railroad freight business very busy. What if Borden's had decided to build a whole new Cremora plant right here in Arcade instead of moving to South Carolina? We'd have an even bigger freight business, and we wouldn't have the eyesore we have today. What if you hadn't had business people like Dick Reisdorf and others who understood the importance of the freight business and supported it? What if you hadn't had state legislators like Dale Volker and Patrick Gallivan, who saw the importance of the railroad and provided state financial assistance? What if they had decided not to invest a lot of money and time in refurbishing engine number 18 after a long absence, to bring it back, as we'll see here this morning? What if you hadn't had a lot of dedicated employees over 100 years? And as I look around, I know at least 3 of the dedicated employees that are here this morning are just a year out of high school. And 50 years ago, when the railroad had its 50th anniversary, I was a year out of high school, and I worked here in various capacities. And among the dedicated employees I remember are people like Ed Lewis, Vic Ellsworth, Bud King, Zeke Lester, Lyle Sherlock, Nelson Cornell, Tom Gainey, Clark Markham, Francis Copeland. In the refreshment stand, Mary Cook and Gene Copeland. In the Grover Cleveland car, Fred Gibbon. And they're all gone now. But among the younger crowd that worked here then, I do remember one kid that came in from East Arcade and would play the accordion and sing on the railroad. I think he's still around. And I know Pat Connors can probably reminisce about a few other people. So I'll turn it over to Pat.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out to our 100th anniversary celebration. For many, the face of the Arcade Attica Railroad is this steam excursion that we're here for today. But really, if you ask people around town, the ARA Railroad means a lot to different things to a lot of different people. And I want to kind of point out the fact that this was started as a community organization. The stockholders were all local. They were businessmen, farmers, residents that wanted to make Arcade and the area grow. For a long time, the board of directors hosted a representative from every town along the line. And year after year at the annual meetings, as Jeff said, it was about the annual dinner that they provided. The movie that went over to where Marcos is today was the theater. And they brought their families so the men could go to the meeting, and they hung out in town here for their meeting. And that was their dividend. But through all those years, the corporation solicited, hey, please use our railroad. Hey, please make sure that your friends and neighbors know that this railroad is important. That's why if you look around town, as we leave on the train, there's a lot of industrial sites. Everything is built around the railroad. This station, bright orange, right here in the middle of town, it's eye-catching. Even though it is the excursion train that makes people think of Arcade, there still are a few out there that remember that there's a lot of freight that travels over this line. We do support local farming. Reisdorf Mill at the end of the line. We still have John 6 lumber. So even if you look back behind us, there was a huge foundry. There's a machine shop uptown. There's a lot of industry that developed around Arcade and is still here today to help build this community into what it is. For myself, Jeff also mentioned a lot of people that were involved in the railroad over time. And as a young kid, I grew up at the end of Haskell Ave. And I remember being absolutely petrified of these people. But my parents brought me out every year, several times a summer, and I have never missed a year since then. And it really does get into your blood. And the one thing that I came to realize, I always thought that I was the first of a long line of railroad generation. Actually, it turns out I had a great-grandfather that worked for the predecessor road at Buffalo, Attica, and Arcade, right here in Arcade. So our family has always been around the train. He actually left to deliver mail because he thought the railroad was too dangerous of a career for him. He was going to be a family man. So he ended up delivering mail on one of the first rural mail routes here in Arcade. This railroad really survived because of the people, both those that enjoyed it, that used it, that worked here. It's really the employees that make us what we are. is really says something. So just keep in mind that it is the people that work here. We make the face of the railroad, and we do it for everybody that's here. We do it because we love it, and we want you all to enjoy this also. Really, thank you for coming out. We'll be doing photographs with the locomotive when they make their presentation here shortly. But first, I would like to welcome Scott from Tonawanda County Tourism.
Well, on behalf of the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce, just congratulations on your 100th anniversary here in Arcade and in Wyoming County. We couldn't be more proud to have this great tourism institution in our county. And next to Letchford State Park, which we know how old that is, the Arcade Attica Railroad is our second oldest tourism asset here, and we couldn't be more proud to have it. So we just want to congratulate you. On behalf of the county, Senator Gallivan was here earlier in the month and brought out a proclamation from the state legislature celebrating and commemorating the 100th anniversary. So he couldn't be here today, but we're very thankful that he did that. That was a very nice gesture from the senator. We've always had, like Jeff and Matt said, we've always had very strong support from our state senators in that delegation. They have been very, very strong supporters, and as have our folks at the Wyoming County level, because we know the importance of this train to both the local economy and how it affects it in a positive way, and the tourism industry here, and bringing 1.5 million people to Wyoming County to ride this train over the course of its history has been phenomenal to what you do to the local economy. So we just want to thank you and congratulate you for that as well. This is a pre-certificate for the official ribbon cutting ceremony that we're going to do in just a few minutes. As soon as that train shows up, we're going to do it. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. And Jeff, very nice words for us this morning. Thank you. Steam engine's on its way. We've never been late before, I don't think, so it should be here shortly. If you lived in town, you know our joke is we never run on time around here. But we turn that steam engine around. It's going to run in reverse today. Nobody's ever seen that here in Arcade. So it's going to come in facing Main Street from the north side here shortly. Then we're going to do our photo ops off the sidewalk on the other side. Just be careful with the traffic. We're going to have flagmen out there. Hopefully we've got about 4 or 5 different pictures that we want to get with everybody into. So thank you.